Caleb sat alone inside the dusty control room of the lunar outpost. The room was small, cold, and filled with blinking screens, wires, and humming machines. He had been working here for almost 5 months, keeping Earth's satellite systems working properly. It wasn't the most exciting job in the galaxy, but it was peaceful and very, very quiet. Outside the thick window, the moon's surface stretched far and wide. Craters and rock formations lay still under the stars. Sometimes, Caleb would stare out and pretend he was a space explorer on some grand adventure. In truth, he was just a technician pressing buttons and fixing antenna signals. Most days, he didn't speak to a single soul. But this day was different. As part of his usual routine, Caleb checked the comms system for errors. His job was to make sure the satellite relays between Earth and deep space stayed online. One of the satellites had been acting strange, sending back broken signals. He connected his headset and began a test transmission. "This is Luna Station 12. Testing frequency 379. Testing UH, hello," he said, then laughed to himself. He leaned back in his chair and sighed. The system was still glitchy. Out of boredom, he switched to another channel, one rarely used, marked Diplomatic Comm, Galactic Council. It was supposed to be reserved for official communication with other civilizations. But to Caleb, it was just another quiet channel. He tapped the mic again. "Hello, anyone out there? This is your lonely human on the moon. Just saying hi." Still no answer. Caleb looked at the screen in front of him. A small image flickered blurry at first, then slowly clearing. It looked like a recording of a recent royal event from another star system. At the center of the screen stood a tall, alien woman, dressed in shining robes of silver and blue. Her face was calm and strong, her eyes glowing softly like twin moons. She wore a crown that shimmered with light. "Ho," Caleb whispered. "Now that's a queen." He hit the record button by habit, not realizing the mic was still live. Smiling, he spoke into the mic without thinking. "Well, hello, beautiful alien queen. If you ever visit Earth, I'll treat you to the best coffee we've got. I don't care what galaxy you're from, you've got style." He chuckled, then closed the screen and went back to his work. What Caleb didn't know was this: the diplomatic frequency was not just open, it was active. And his message, which he thought was just a silly joke, had been sent straight through the Galactic Council's communication lines. It was picked up by translation systems, tagged as urgent, and transmitted across several alien empires, reaching the Grand Court of Queen Azura herself. Far across the stars, in a palace made of glowing crystal towers, Queen Azura stood in front of her advisors. She was reviewing diplomatic transmissions from the outer regions of the galaxy. Most of the messages were boring trade requests, event invitations, and official reports. But then one message caught her attention. Her chief translator stepped forward and bowed. "My queen, there's an unusual signal from Sector 99X, from a human colony near the moon." "Play it," she said. The message played. Caleb's voice, casual and unfiltered. "Well, hello, beautiful alien queen. If you ever visit Earth, I'll treat you to the best coffee we've got. I don't care what galaxy you're from, you've got style." The room went silent. The advisors looked at each other in confusion. Queen Azura, however, raised an eyebrow and smiled. "Was that but human?" she asked. Double quotes, "Yes, Your Majesty." The language is Earth English. The message appears to be directed to you. Azura tilted her head thoughtfully. "Interesting. They have never addressed me so directly before, and certainly not with such boldness. Shall we ignore it, Your Majesty?" One advisor asked. "It may have been sent in error." "No," Azura replied, her voice calm and curious. "This is not an insult. It is a compliment, and more than that, it was honest." She turned to her guards. "Prepare a diplomatic vessel. I wish to meet this human." Back on the moon, Caleb had already forgotten the message. He was finishing his shift when a loud alarm began to beep across the control room. He jumped to his feet, confused. The radar showed something approaching fast, something big. A strange symbol lit up on the screen, Royal Chalari vessel. Clearance level 1. What the? Caleb blinked. That's not from Earth. A glowing circle of light formed in the middle of the room. A tall figure stepped through it, dressed in royal armor and carrying a staff. Behind her, several guards stood in silence. Are you Caleb of Luna Station 12? The tall figure asked. Yeah, Caleb said, slowly raising a hand. Did I forget to file a report? You are summoned by Queen Azura of the Chalari Empire, the woman said. Your words have reached her ears. She wishes to meet you in person. Caleb's jaw dropped. Wait, what words? You mean? The joke I made earlier? It was no joke. Human, she replied. It was taken as a formal expression of noble interest. You are now considered a candidate for Her Majesty's royal marriage. Caleb blinked. And before he could ask another question, the room filled with light, and the guards stepped forward. Caleb had never left the moon. He had never even left his base. But now, just one day after joking into a make, he found himself sitting in a silver seat inside a strange alien ship. The walls glowed soft blue. The air smelled like fresh rain, and there wasn't a single button or screen he recognized. Are you sure this isn't a mistake? Caleb asked for the 5th time. The tall woman in armor, Captain Tora, stood beside him. Her face was calm and serious. There is no mistake, she said. You sent a message. Our queen received it. You have been selected for consideration. As her royal consort, Caleb looked around nervously. All I said was, that she looked good. I wasn't proposing marriage. Captain Tor raised an eyebrow. On Earth, you may have spoken casually, but in our culture, words like yours carry deep meaning. You praised the queen's beauty and offered hospitality. This is seen as a high honor. Some consider it a declaration of noble interest. Caleb blinked, so I basically asked her out, and she said yes. Tora didn't smile, but her tone softened. The queen is not someone who answers with jokes. She is curious about you. That is rare. You should be honored. He wasn't sure if he felt honored or terrified. The ship traveled faster than anything Caleb had ever imagined. In less than 2 hours, they left the solar system and entered a part of space he had never seen on any map. Huge stars burned like golden fires outside the window. Strange planets floated by, glowing in bright colors. Finally, they arrived at Celaris, the home world of Queen Azura. From orbit, the planet looked like a shining gem. Its oceans were violet blue, and its lands sparkled with green light. Tall, silver towers rose from floating islands. Giant rings of crystal spun slowly around the planet like decorations. As they approached the capital city, Caleb leaned against the window in wonder. This looks like something out of a dream. Tora nodded. It is the crown world of the Chalari Empire. You were lucky to see it with your own eyes. When the ship landed, a group of alien officials stood waiting. They wore long robes and carried staffs topped with glowing stones. Caleb stepped out carefully, feeling like a child entering a palace. The palace itself was made of glass-like stone, shaped into arches and bridges that floated above gardens. Filled with glowing plants, creatures with wings flew silently overhead. Music played in the air, as if coming from the wind itself. Caleb was led through a long hall and into a wide chamber. A blue carpet stretched from the doors to a tall throne made of white crystal. Sitting on it was Queen Azura. She looked exactly like in the broadcast, tall, graceful, and strong. Her eyes glowed like twin stars, and her silver robes shimmered with every movement. But in person, she felt even more powerful. Caleb froze in place. His mouth felt dry. Azura stood from her throne and slowly walked toward him. The room fell silent. Everyone waited. So, she said gently, "You are the human who called me beautiful." Caleb swallowed hard. Yes, Your Majesty. That was me. Sorry, I didn't mean to cause all this. Her lips curved into a small smile. Do not apologize. In my world, we value honest words. You saw me not as a ruler, not as a symbol, but as a person. That is rare. He relaxed a little. Well, I guess I wasn't thinking like a diplomat. Good, Azura said. I hear from diplomats every day. They only say what they think I want to hear. But you spoke from the heart. That is why I summoned you." Caleb looked around. The chamber was full of people staring at him. Some looked curious, some looked annoyed. Can I ask, what exactly happens now?" he said carefully. Azura motioned to a nearby guard, who stepped forward with a scroll. "You have been entered into the royal selection," she said. "You will join 6 other candidates from across the stars. You will take part in 3 trials tests of character, courage, and wisdom. After that, I will choose the one I believe should stand beside me." Caleb blinked. "Wait, I have to compete?" "Like, actually compete." "Yes," she said. "You are not being forced. You may leave at any time. But if you stay, you must follow our customs." He hesitated. "I'm just a technician. I don't know anything about royal life. I don't even know if I'm the kind of guy you want as a royal partner." Azura studied him for a moment. "That is what the trials are for. You will not be judged by wealth, power, or blood, only by who you are." He took a deep breath. "Then, I guess I'm in. I mean, how many people get this kind of chance?" Azura smiled softly. "Very few." Later that evening, Caleb was led to a guest chamber. It was larger than his entire moon base. The bed was round and soft. A small fountain bubbled gently in the corner. A tray of strange fruits sat on the table. He picked up something that looked like a blue peach and took a bite. It tasted like vanilla and mint. He sat down, staring at the glowing ceiling. The events of the day felt like a dream. "One minute I'm joking into a mic," he said to himself. "The next I'm competing for the hand of a space queen." A soft voice came from the wall. It was the palace assistant. "Your first trial begins tomorrow, Caleb of Earth. Rest well." He lay back and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he would face the first challenge. He didn't know what it would be. He didn't know who the other candidates were. But one thing was certain: things would never be the same again. The next morning, Caleb woke early. Sunlight from Salars filtered softly through the tall windows of his guest chamber. Outside, the palace garden shimmered with glowing flowers and strange creatures moving silently between trees. A small door beside his bed slid open. A silver-clad attendant entered and bowed. "Good morning, Caleb. Your first trial will begin shortly. Please follow me." Caleb stood and took a deep breath. His heart beat fast. He wasn't sure what to expect. Would it be a test of strength, intelligence, or something else? He followed the attendant down wide marble halls and into a large open courtyard. The sky was bright blue, and the air smelled sweet with alien blooms. 6 other candidates stood, waiting. Each wore a different style of clothing, some elegant, some practical. Caleb's eyes met theirs. There was Tarek, a tall alien with dark green skin and sharp eyes. Mira, a small but fierce woman from the desert planet Zolra. Yano, a quiet man covered in silver tattoos. And 3 others whose faces were new to Caleb. "Welcome, candidates," a voice called out. It was Queen Azura, standing on a raised platform. Nearby, she wore a simple robe today, her crown replaced by a delicate circlet. "You have all come here for one purpose," she said. "To prove that you are worthy to stand by my side. The first trial tests your mind and your honesty. You will each face a challenge designed to reveal your true character." Caleb swallowed hard. A test of honesty. How did they do that? Azura smiled gently. "You will see." The candidates were led one by one into a small room filled with strange objects, mirrors that reflected not only faces but thoughts. Puzzles made of light and machines that hummed quietly. Caleb's turn came last. The door slid open, and he stepped inside. The room was empty except for a large mirror in the center. As he looked into it, the mirror began to glow softly. Suddenly, a voice spoke. "Caleb of Earth, you are asked to speak your truth. Tell us, what do you fear the most?" Caleb thought for a moment. He knew this was no ordinary mirror. It could see beyond words. He said honestly, "I fear being forgotten. That one day, no one will remember me. That my life will be meaningless." The mirror shimmered and showed a glowing image of a star slowly fading out. "Your fear is known. You value meaning. Now answer this. What is the greatest truth you hold about yourself?" Caleb smiled faintly. "That even a simple man can make a difference if he tries." The mirror pulsed warmly. You have answered well. The door slid open, and Caleb stepped out. Outside, Queen Azura waited. You have completed the first trial, she said. Few have answered with such honesty. Many tried to hide their fears. Caleb felt a small surge of pride. Azura looked at the other candidates. Each trial will grow harder. The next will test your courage. She turned to Caleb. You have done well. Rest now. Tomorrow, your trial will begin at sunrise. Back in his chamber, Caleb thought about the others. Tarek had seemed confident but never spoke much. Mira was quiet but alert. He wondered what they feared. As he prepared for bed, a soft knock came at the door. It was Mira. May I come in? She asked. Caleb nodded. Of course. She smiled shyly. I wanted to say good luck. This trial, it is not easy. Thanks, Caleb said. You too. They talked quietly for a while. Mira told him stories of her desert world, where courage was tested every day against fierce storms and dangerous animals. Caleb shared his life on the moon, how small and lonely it could feel. They found comfort in each other's honesty. The next morning, Caleb and the other candidates gathered again. This time, the trial was set in the palace's ancient arena, a wide circle of smooth stone, surrounded by tall pillars. The sun was bright, and the air was warm. Azura explained the second trial. This test measures your courage. You will face challenges that require quick thinking and bravery. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. One by one, the candidates entered the arena. Caleb's task was simple but frightening. Cross a narrow, swaying bridge high above the ground. Below, sharp crystal spikes glittered. The bridge looked old and unstable. His heart raced as he stepped forward. The bridge shook beneath his feet, and the wind whipped around him. Halfway across, a sudden gust nearly knocked him off balance. He gripped the ropes tightly and focused. One careful step after another, Caleb crossed to the other side. When he reached safety, the crowd below cheered quietly. Azura nodded with approval. But courage would be tested again. Suddenly, the sky darkened. From the palace gates, a group of hostile creatures appeared. They were large, armored beasts known as Grathans, fierce enemies of the Chilari Empire. Unexpected challenge, Azura said calmly. Defend the arena. Caleb and the candidates were handed simple weapons, energy staffs that could stun but not kill. The Grathans charged, their heavy steps shaking the ground. Caleb's heart pounded. He moved quickly, blocking one beast and helping another candidate who stumbled. He saw Tarek fight fiercely but struggle against the stronger creatures. Caleb shouted, Stay together. Don't let them divide us. Using teamwork, the candidates pushed the Grathans back. Caleb noticed how the others looked to him for direction. In the end, the Grathans retreated. Azura stepped forward, smiling. Your courage and leadership saved the trial. Well done. That evening, Caleb felt tired but proud. He sat in the garden and looked at the stars. The palace felt less strange now. He had friends among the candidates, and he had earned the queen's respect. But he also knew the hardest trial was still ahead, a test of wisdom and heart. As he looked up, he whispered, I won't let them down. Caleb stood in the royal garden after sunset. The twin moons of Solaris floated above him, casting silver light over the palace. Strange glowing birds chirped in the trees, and soft music drifted from hidden crystal flowers. It should have been peaceful, but his heart felt heavy. The second trial had ended only hours ago. Caleb had helped stop the attack by the Grathans. Everyone had said he was brave. Even Queen Azura had smiled at him and thanked him. But something didn't feel right. Why had the Grathans attacked during a royal trial? That wasn't normal. The guards had been surprised, and there was no warning. It felt to perfect like someone wanted the test to fail. Or worse, Caleb walked slowly through the garden paths, thinking hard. Then he saw someone sitting near a tall tree. It was Mira. She looked up and waved. Couldn't sleep? Not really, Caleb said. You? She shook her head. Too many questions. They sat together on a stone bench. Caleb hesitated, then said quietly, Don't you think that Grathan attack was too well-timed? Mira's eyes narrowed. Yes, I've seen them before. They don't attack like that unless someone tells them to. You think someone here is working with them? Caleb asked. Mira looked around to make sure no one was nearby. There are some who don't want an outsider like you to win. A human chosen by the Queen. That would change everything. Caleb felt a chill. You think they would hurt people just to stop that from happening? Mira nodded slowly. Some would. The next morning, the palace buzzed with quiet tension. The guards were doubled. Officials whispered in corners. The Queen's expression was calm, but her eyes were sharp, watching everything. The candidates were called to the throne room. Queen Azura stood in front of them. Today, we begin the third and final trial, she said. This is a test of wisdom. You will be given a challenge that requires heart and mind. Only one of you will be chosen. Caleb noticed Tarek standing at the back of the group, arms crossed. He looked angry, more than usual. Azura continued, the challenge will not be physical. You must make a choice. Solve a problem and show who you are inside. The candidates were each taken to a separate chamber. Caleb's room was quiet and simple. A small table stood in the center with two glowing cubes. A screen on the wall turned on, showing Queen Azura's face. This is your task, she said. One of these cubes will give you a reward. The other will help a stranger in need. Far away on a dying world, you will never meet them, and no one will know what you choose. Which will you pick? Caleb stared at the cubes. One was gold. The other was silver. He sat in silence for a while. The gold cube promised comfort, status, maybe even the crown. The silver cube would do nothing for him but might save lives. He reached forward and touched the silver cube. The screen turned off. Nothing else happened. But Caleb felt peaceful inside. Later that day, the candidates gathered again in the arena. The Queen stood at the center. I have seen your choices, she said, and I am proud of each of you. But before I choose, there is something I must reveal. She turned to the crowd. The Grathan attack yesterday was not random. Someone inside this palace gave them access. A murmur ran through the crowd. Azura raised a hand. We have found the one responsible. Guards stepped forward and grabbed Tarek. He struggled for a moment, then stopped. His face showed no regret. I did what I had to, he said. That human doesn't belong here. He's not one of us. Caleb stared in shock. Tarek had tried to sabotage the trial. Just to stop him, Azura looked calm, but her voice was firm. You have betrayed the law of the trials. You are no longer a candidate. Tarek was taken away. Azura turned back to the others. This trial was never about power or bloodlines. It was about truth. And now, I have made my choice. She walked slowly toward Caleb. You, Caleb of Earth, have passed all three trials. With honesty, courage, and heart, you risked yourself to protect others. Even those you did not know. You chose kindness over reward. I choose you. The crowd fell silent. Caleb's voice trembled. Are you sure, Your Majesty? Azura smiled. I have ruled for many years. I know when I see something rare. You spoke from your heart the day you called me beautiful. Now I speak from mine. She reached out and took his hand. Will you stand with me? Caleb nodded slowly. Yes, I will. That night, the palace held a celebration. Lights danced in the sky, and music echoed through the crystal halls. People from across the galaxy watched the ceremony on their screens. Caleb stood beside Queen Azura. No longer just a visitor or a technician. He was now something more. And even though he never meant to become part of this world, he had found a place in it, a place where a single human, with no special powers or royal blood, could still change everything. After the celebration ended, the palace slowly returned to quiet. Most guests had left. The lights faded. Music drifted softly through the empty halls. Caleb stood on the balcony outside his new guest room. He looked up at the sky of Salar's dark, purple with shining stars and twin moons glowing bright. Everything still felt like a dream. He had passed all the trials. He had been chosen by Queen Azura. But deep inside, he still asked himself the same question. Why me? The door behind him opened. He turned to see Queen Azura standing there, wearing a simple robe without her crown. I hope I'm not disturbing you, she said softly. No, Caleb said with a small smile. You're the queen. You can go anywhere you want. Azura stepped beside him, looking at the sky. This is one of my favorite places. I come here to think, to feel normal. Caleb laughed lightly. It's funny. I've been asking myself if this is all real. A few days ago, I was just fixing wires on the moon. And now, Azura said, you are beside a queen. Caleb nodded. But why did you really choose me? Azura looked at him, her glowing eyes gentle. You are not the strongest. You are not the smartest. You do not come from a noble family. But your heart is clear, and your actions are honest. That is what I need beside me. Someone who tells the truth. Someone who cares. She paused. I have ruled for many years. I have seen greed, lies, and pride in many faces. But in you, I saw kindness and courage. That is rare. Caleb looked down, not sure what to say. Azura placed her hand on his. I did not expect you to become a perfect royal. I do not want a puppet or a trophy. I want someone who will walk with me, not behind me. Are you ready for that? Caleb looked into her eyes. I don't know everything about your world. I don't know the rules. But I'll try. I'll learn. And I'll stand by you. Azura smiled. That is all I ask. The next day, the palace. Council met to discuss the future. Queen Azura sat at the head of the round table. Caleb sat beside her, still getting used to the new seat. The council members were not all happy. One elder spoke first. Your Majesty, with all respect, a human has never stood beside our throne. The people may not accept this. Azura replied calmly. The people want peace, hope, and truth. Caleb has shown them all three. Another member added, but he knows little of our customs, our politics. Caleb stood slowly. That's true. I don't know everything, but I didn't come here to pretend. I came here by accident, and then I chose to stay, because I believe in what the Queen stands for. I'm not here to change your world. I'm here to be a part of it. The room went silent. Finally, the oldest council member, a woman named Cyril, nodded. Perhaps new eyes will help us see new paths. Let him stay. One by one. The council members agreed. Azura turned to Caleb. It begins now. The real work. Are you ready? He nodded. Let's do it. Later that week, Caleb joined Azura. On a tour across Solaris, they visited floating cities, ocean domes, and sky gardens. Everywhere they went, people gathered to see the queen and the human who stood beside her. At first, many were unsure. They stared, whispered, and watched carefully. But slowly, things changed. Caleb helped fix a broken weather system in a farming village. He shared stories about Earth and listened to stories from children in the mountain schools. He laughed with old workers and helped plant healing herbs in the royal greenhouse. People began to smile when they saw him. They stopped seeing him as a stranger and started seeing him as someone who cared. One evening, after a long day of travel, Caleb and Azura sat under the stars beside a lake. Soft lights floated above the water. Firebugs danced in the air. Azura looked at Caleb. You've changed things already. People see it. I feel it. I didn't do much. Caleb said humbly. You showed them who you are. She said, and that changed everything. He looked at her. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever get tired of being queen? Azura thought for a moment. Yes, it is a heavy crown. But with the right person beside me, it feels lighter. She turned toward him. And I no longer feel alone in it. Caleb gently held her hand. Then I'll stay as long as you need me. She smiled. I hope that means forever. The next morning, the royal court announced the official engagement. Caleb, the human from Earth, would become the royal partner of Queen Azura of Solaris. Some cheered, some doubted, but all watched with wide eyes, because something new had begun. Not just a marriage, but a bond between two worlds. The palace of Solaris was brighter than ever. Colored lights floated in the air, banners waved from the towers, and music played through the city streets. The royal announcement had been made. Queen Azura was officially engaged to Caleb, the human from Earth. But not everyone celebrated. Far beyond the city, in the dark corners of space, a group of powerful nobles gathered in secret. They were known as the shadow circle leaders of old families who didn't want change. A tall alien named Lord Varric slammed his fist on the table. A human, a common man from a distant world. He will not sit beside our queen. Another noble added, the people love him, but love fades. Power does not. Varric leaned forward. Then we take the power. We strike while they are weak. Back in the palace, Caleb and Azura stood on the balcony, watching the city lights below. The air was calm, but both of them felt a strange tension. Something is not right, Caleb said quietly. Azura nodded. There are whispers in the court, old rivals, angry nobles. You think they'll try something? Azura looked at him. I know they will. Caleb took a deep breath. Then we prepare. That night, the attack began. Without warning, the palace shield systems failed. Explosions shook the outer towers. Ships flew overhead, dropping silent energy bombs. Panic spread as guards rushed to protect the queen. In the main hallway, Caleb stood with Captain Tora, the royal commander. We're under attack from the inside, Tora said. Sabotage. Someone disabled our defenses. Caleb clenched his fists. Where's Azura? She's safe, for now. But we need help, and fast. Caleb ran to the palace control room. Most of the staff were already working hard, trying to restart systems. But the enemy was fast. Several parts of the palace were already taken. Caleb had an idea. He tapped into the emergency communication system and sent a signal to Earth, Luna Station 12. This is Caleb. If you're receiving this, I need help. Solaris is under attack. Tell Earth Command, humanity needs to show what it's made of. He ended the message and turned back to the screen. Let's hope someone heard it. On the moon, a young technician named Ravi received the message. He stared at the screen, shocked. Caleb, he's alive. Within minutes, Earth Command was alerted. Ships were readied. Messages were sent to allied planets. Humanity had made many friends in recent years. Now, it was time to stand with them. The response was fast. A fleet of human ships launched from Earth, Mars, and Luna base, small, fast, and smart, designed not just for war, but for defense and strategy. For the first time, humans were going to fight for the queen of another world. Back on Solaris, Caleb led a group of loyal guards through the palace halls. He had no armor, just a stun blaster and a headset. But his voice gave orders with calm strength. We're not fighting for a throne, he said. We're fighting for peace, and we protect the queen at all costs. The palace defenders used clever tricks. They locked corridors, used mirrors to confuse attackers, and even hid in the gardens to surprise the enemy. Caleb's knowledge of old Earth tactics helped them hold the palace longer than expected. Still, the enemy was strong. Lord Varric himself entered the throne room with a team of armored soldiers. Queen Azura stood waiting, her staff in hand. You would betray your people, she said coldly. Varric laughed. No, I would save them from your foolish choice. He raised his weapon, but before he could fire, a blinding light flashed through the windows. Human ships had arrived. The skies above Solaris lit up with fire and light. Human fighters swarmed in, protecting civilians and locking onto enemy ships. They used stealth systems, fast turns, and smart shields. It wasn't about having bigger weapons, it was about having better ideas. The Chalari defenders cheered as the enemy ships began to retreat. Inside the palace, Caleb and Tor led the final charge to free the throne room. With human support landing nearby, they pushed back Varric's soldiers. In the final moment, Azura herself stepped forward and knocked Varric's weapon from his hand. You've lost, she said calmly. Varric sneered. You think this will last? Azura looked to Caleb, who stood beside her now. Yes, because we stand together. The battle ended just before sunrise. The palace was damaged, but standing. The people of Solaris, once worried and divided, now stood united. They had seen bravery from their queen, and they had seen courage from a human who refused to leave them behind. Caleb stood in the courtyard as Earth's ambassador approached him. You've made quite an impression, the ambassador said. Earth is proud. Caleb smiled. I didn't do it for Earth. I did it for her, and for the people who believed in me. Later that day, Queen Azura addressed the people from her balcony. Her voice echoed through the capital. We were attacked by fear, but we fought back with unity. We stood together not as aliens or humans or royals, but as one people. She held Caleb's hand beside her, and this man, from a small moon base, showed us that courage is not about power, it's about heart. The crowd cheered. That evening, Caleb and Azura walked through the garden again, the same place where they had spoken honestly for the first time. Do you still think this all started with a mistake? Azura asked playfully. Caleb laughed. One small message, one silly compliment, and now look where we are. She smiled. Maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was fate. They sat under the stars, no longer just a queen and a visitor, but partners who had fought together, led together, and survived together. And the galaxy would never forget the day humanity stood for love, not war. The sun rose slowly over the shining towers of Solaris. Its soft golden light spread across the capital like a warm blanket, brushing the palace walls, the glass gardens, and the great crystal hall where history was about to be made. Inside the grand hall, Queen Azura stood at the center. She wore royal robes of silver and blue, her crown shining brighter than ever. Today was not just another ceremony, this was the day she would make her final choice. Across the galaxy, millions watched the event live. Screens floated in the skies of many planets. In human cities on Earth and Mars, people gathered in large halls to see what would happen. Would the Queen of Solaris truly choose a human as her royal partner? Caleb stood at the far end of the hall, dressed in formal Chalari clothing, simple, elegant, and peaceful in design. His heart beat fast, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. He had passed the trials. He had stood beside the queen. In battle, he had earned the respect of her people. But even now, as the hall fell silent, he wondered, would she still choose him? A soft tone rang through the air. Azura raised her staff. Her voice was clear and calm, filled with power. People of Solaris, friends from across the stars, I stand before you not as just your ruler, but as one of you. She paused, letting her words settle. We have faced many changes. We have met new worlds. And in that journey, I met someone who reminded me what true strength looks like, not in war, not in titles, but in kindness, truth, and heart. She turned to Caleb. Caleb of Earth, you came to us as a stranger, but you became something more. You stood with us in danger, brought hope in dark moments, and never once asked for anything in return. She took a step forward. The hall was silent. I made my decision long ago, not by tradition, not by pressure, but by choice, and today I make it known. She raised her hand and spoke the ancient words of her people. I choose not just a partner, but an equal. I choose not by birth, but by soul. She looked Caleb in the eyes and smiled. I choose you. A wave of cheers filled the grand hall. Chalari citizens bowed. Visitors from Earth clapped and cried. Even the oldest council members, who once doubted, nodded in quiet respect. Caleb felt like time had stopped. He slowly walked forward until he stood beside her. She reached out her hand. He took it. You're really sure about this? He whispered, with a soft grin. Azura laughed quietly. After everything we've been through, you still ask that? Old habit, Caleb said. She looked at the crowd and declared, let this be the beginning of a new chapter for Solaris, for Earth, and for the stars beyond. Later, after the ceremony ended, a private celebration was held in the Sky Garden. The space was filled with glowing flowers, soft music, and food from many worlds. Caleb sat with Mira and Captain Tora. Mira held a glass of fruit juice and smiled. I guess you did it, she said. The human who became royalty. Caleb scratched the back of his head. I still feel like the same guy who used to fix wires on the moon. Tora nodded. Good. Don't change that. Then the queen arrived, walking calmly across the garden path. When she reached Caleb, everyone stood in silence. Come with me, she said softly. Caleb followed her down a path filled with floating petals and soft lights. At the edge of the garden, they stood alone under the twin moons. Do you know why I really chose you? Azura asked. Caleb looked at her. Because I made a joke on the wrong frequency, she smiled. That joke was the first honest thing anyone had said to me in years. She turned to him, more serious now. I've spent most of my life with rules and duties. But with you, I've felt free. Not just as a queen, but as a person. I feel the same, Caleb said. You saw me when I was just a nobody in a cold outpost, and you gave me a chance. She held his hand. Then let's build something new. Together. Months passed, under Azura and Caleb's leadership. The Chalari Empire in Earth began a new age of peace and learning. Programs were started to share knowledge, culture, and technology. Human engineers helped build water systems on desert planets. Chalari healers visited Earth to teach advanced medicine. Young students from both worlds wrote stories, painted stars, and dreamed of a united future. And as for Caleb, he never became a traditional royal. He didn't sit on a golden throne or wear heavy crowns. Instead, he worked with the people, teaching, listening, solving problems, and bringing laughter wherever he went. He became a symbol not of power, but of connection. The man who had once sent a simple message now stood as proof that one voice, no matter how small, can echo across the stars. One evening, far from the cities, Azura and Caleb sat on a quiet hill, looking up at the stars. Do you ever miss Earth? Azura asked. Sometimes, Caleb said. The taste of real coffee, the sound of rain on metal roofs. But then I look at this sky, and I remember why I stayed. Azura rested her head on his shoulder. And I'm glad you did. She said. They sat there for a long time, under the stars. No war, no trials, no speeches, just two souls who had found each other across galaxies. And in that silence, they both knew this wasn't just the end of a story. It was the beginning of something beautiful. The end.